Hi there, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case and the latest breaking news on the matter, more so to do with the suspect James Brenner pleading guilty, and I believe it's second-degree murder. Today we're going to look at all the news articles, a handful of them, just to check for consistency. Not every article mentions every bit of information, that's why we look at a couple. Also going to be sharing with you some official, I think, Box Elder statement, and that's on the Find Dylan, well, Justice or Legacy, Dylan's Legacy Facebook page, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to get through all this heavy information today to make sense of what went down and to understand it myself and then present it to you. Some people may have already watched True Crime Utah, Gloria Dylan, an individual that has attended court appearances of Brenner over time, which has been good. You've seen it firsthand from a person that's been there and experienced it themselves. And no one seems to question Gloria Dylan too, which I guess is a positive. The reason why people still question Candice Cooley till this day is simply because of the past. If the past never happened, people would have more trust and faith within her. As said, I see it from all perspectives and sides. That's why I'm able to establish balance. So when you are here watching, it's all under control, don't worry. Welcome to those that are currently watching in this live premiere. Share your thoughts, opinions and reactions in the live chat box. If anyone wants to leave reactions, comments, questions, leave them down below under this video in the comment section and I'll look at them some other time. Down below you'll also find a pinned comment with some additional links of me. If you want to check that out, if you want to support the channel, it's available there. If you want to catch up on recent video of mine, the previous breaking news, top right corner of the screen, click on the I symbol and you will be able to see the original breaking news which came out before this preliminary hearing of Brenner. I guess it's still called a preliminary hearing, if not just some kind of court appearance, serious one though, because pleading guilty is quite a big thing, that, okay? So there are videos out there. There's footage of Brenner in a court, as he's walking on in and stuff. I don't know about analysing body language or not, because at the end of the day, Brenner has pleaded guilty, and he's already revealed to authorities where he buried Dylan, so plea deal made there too. So there's not really much to look at Brenner in terms of body language, because it's not really any different to how when we chat last time round. Maybe there was only one little interesting point within the court details when they were going over the stuff, I guess the evidence, and when listing it all off, then they said to Brenner, do you agree with it? Or, are you aware of it? Or are you responsible for it? Something along the lines of that. And Brenner didn't say anything. And then his attorney whispered in his ear, I guess saying, say yes. And then Brenner's like, yeah, I guess. You guess. Is it not obvious that that's you in that time-lapse footage, or you're responsible for this or that happened because you were present? And for Brenner to say, I guess, is it uncertainty with Brenner? Not quite there with it, just going along with it, just saying yes to everything? I wonder. I mean, that's the only thing that stood out to me. The rest is what it is. Did he limp in? It didn't really seem that obvious. I wasn't really paying much attention there. In the past, it seemed like he was limping more, but I believe that was more so because he was like chained up, so it restricted his movement. Now, there is some footage by Candice Cooley as well, in an interview with some other woman, and then another one with Profiling Evil, just talking about the thoughts and what's going on. The one with Profiling Evil, Candice Cooley was just basically saying to him, that YouTuber, about Crime Con of what's coming up, June 2nd, Crime Con, where they all get together, like podcast or something, meetups, hangouts, socialized networks, all that. Spread awareness on YouTubers who exploit the true crime cases and community. But there is harmful misinformation out there and it can be detrimental to cases. So Candice Cooley calling out YouTubers, and I guess within the Dylan Rounds case as well. So that's very interesting. Candice Cooley has praised YouTubers in the past, but now criticizing them, but she's not being specific as to who is who. So you can have some good people that cover a case and you can have bad people. And that's what Candice Cooley is getting at there. I've seen a fair range of disruptive people, and I'm sure some of you have as well. So there was that being talked about, awareness. Candice Cooley said something about text messages, emails, calls that will be used as an example when highlighting their issues that they've faced. So could that be calls by certain individuals out there that harassed Candice Cooley just in rounds, or will it be exposed? Who knows? But that's in the future. We need to look at what's present right now, and that's to do with Brenner, of course. Now, True Crime Utah Glorindale first made it clear and apparent last night as to what's happened, because that's when it happened. Take in mind, later on in the night or later on in the day, UK time zone difference, right? The breaking news that I delivered yesterday was recorded much earlier on in the day. But if I did a live premiere daytime, UK time, no one would turn up, okay? So understand me, okay? So with that happening, and then True Crime coming on in later because of attending that, the hearing preliminary of Brenner and the pleading guilty and stuff, and the details revealed, and the cause of death as well. Whilst it was confirmed and officially confirmed, because I know Christie, I know Andrew Cole, they're extremely sceptical of the Dylan Rounds case, extremely sceptical of Candice Cooley, extremely sceptical of Brenner being responsible, extremely sceptical of Brenner actually killing Dylan on purpose, or it was by accident, confused that, but it seems to have been ironed out now and confirmed. Now, I'll do one little thing, okay? Not everyone will like it, but tough. I'm going to do it because what needs to highlight is all of the time when humans try to minimize or diminish my theories, my ideas, my map analysis. You remember the storytelling, trying to piece what we know, the facts and information, and then applying it to what it could be, what it could have led to. The events, the time lapse, the phone pings, the timestamp, telling that story. I've documented extensively on my channel, and I've done videos in the past, and I also brought up the odd few theories. It just so happened that I was right from the looks of it. So in the past, you had obsessions, okay? Obsessions with quite a few humans out there. Those who created it, those that spread it, those that were manipulated or brainwashed by it, that Dylan Rounds was chopped up, cut up, and all that bollocks. Rubbish. Complete rubbish. But many people fell for it. Dipsy individuals, and some vulnerable, is where it is. I stood still, okay? I was not brainwashed. If you wonder what that slapping sound is, I'm just beating my chest, okay? In case you're wondering. We the people. I remained neutral, but I had my own thoughts and ideas in here, which I did share at times, and it just so happens that I guess I was right. What it goes to show is when warlike wrath, or should I say warlike wrath, does map analysis, when warlike wrath does the story time and pieces it all together, when warlike wrath uses the scalpel to separate it and then reattach afterwards, patchworking, just so happens that warlike wrath can be right, and can be right for some time. Predictions in the community, predictions in the case. Whilst the masses of disease-ridden humans can put me down, or at least try to, and diminish my ideas, my thoughts, my visions within the case, and applied to the maps to get that visual sense and understanding, I was under control, it was under control, the map was under control, the theory was under control, and now it's turned into a fact. This is what I'm saying. This is what happens when you have it under control. So we just need to do this announcement once again, okay? This is what happens, okay? All under control. Pat yourself on the back. Well done, Raf. Well done, Raf. Well done. You've done a very good job. Exactly. Exactly. See? And some people might wonder, what the hell's going on? What's going on? Well, basically, cause of death was revealed. Okay, and that was by True Crime Utah, who attended the actual court appearance, and it was actually mentioned in the court appearance video on East Idaho News. I'm not sure if it will be mentioned in the transcripts of the articles we're looking at today. I hope so, though. But it was officially mentioned in the court video, if you want to watch it yourself, that Brenner shot Dylan in the head at least 2 times, I believe. There was extra information added on. I don't know if it was mentioned in the court's video or the articles, but some of the people that were over on Gloria and Dylan's channel listening in reported on here and left comments highlighting that Brenner shot Dylan with Dylan's gun. Now, unless there was poor wording there, that's how I'm interpreting it as. So besides me predicting that Dylan was shot, I also highlighted that is there a chance that Brenner may have used Dylan's gun against him? And from the looks of it, that seems to be the case. So any witnesses present, any people watching right now and those from the past, do any of you remember when I did my videos in the past with the map analysis at the Grainshed property, as I was talking it through how on this day at this time that Dylan may have been reversing or getting out of his truck, ambushed by Brenner, had a conflict? Was it an ambush? Was it direct face-to-face confrontational? And then was there a tussle in which Brenner may have got the gun off Dylan in a way? You know, like I was talking about things like that, the different possibilities. And whilst I did highlight many different theories and ideas, at least one of them or 2 of them were correct. And that's why I do what I do. Because I can think of many different angles, perspectives, and outcomes, I will be right in one way or another. Many other humans out there are very tunnel vision focused, have an agenda. Oh, Dylan's chopped up. Oh, Dylan was burnt. Oh, Dylan was stabbed, whatever, blah, 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 blah. No, that didn't happen, you delusional plums, you delusional planks, you one-dimensional dense cretins, okay? When humans focus, when humans lock on, and when humans have it under control, it will be okay. Well done, Warlight Ref. Well done for the map analysis. Well done for the accurate predictions and ideas and theories, exactly which originated from the Kenny Veach case, in which I applied extensively there and used my experience within the Dylan Rounds case, in which many of the humans out there could not grasp, comprehend, and decided to go against it. I was right. Warlike Ref was right. And there'll be other people out there that were right as well. And there'll be some that use simple common sense to understand what likely happened, right? What you've got to understand when it comes to Brenner, history has repeated itself again. It was seen as a work dispute in which it led to a shooting towards Dylan in the head twice. You could ask yourself, why twice? Well, there's different possibilities, okay? Shooting twice just to make sure that the person's dead, well, that would be done with intent in the moment. And to be honest, most of the time, an accidental shooting, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, but accidental shootings can be a bit lower down on the body, where it's maybe a bit easier. And if you're up close with someone tussling around, oh, shoot him in the arm, shoot him in the leg, but directly in the head, where it's a harder place to hit and the main spot, most people who target the head are doing it with intent to kill, because most of the time it's more of an instant kill rather than being shot in the arm. That's why when people commit suicide, they do it in the head and not anywhere else, or they might do it under the jaw into the head because of the brain, skull, and that will take you out immediately most of the time. Though granted, there'll be moments where someone will shoot a person in the head and it might miss the key areas. It might skim past, it might not hit the brain, it might ricochet, I don't know. So you got to shoot them again. It's like with the failed suicide attempts where people have shot themselves in the head and they've bled out and died slowly. Not good. Others done it and they just didn't die. And they were rescued or found by someone, family, loved one, taken to hospital, recovered, and then whatever happened there. So it's not always guaranteed. I can understand shooting twice. It sounds bad, but to make sure that the person is dead, or with an extra form of energy being exerted from the killer, such as Brenner, to finish the job, done with a form of aggression and kind of like violence as well. You know, it's like when if someone was kicked and punched, lesser severity, and they've been knocked to the ground, may have been even KO'd, and it's like, leave it, that's enough. But no, the person goes at it again, kicks them in the stomach or kicks them back in the head, and it's like, overkill, that's enough. But with Brenner, that was literal killing and doing it 2 lots of times, bang, bang, okay? Did it reveal the location? I don't believe so, but likely would have been at the Grainshed property, nearby or inside, okay? Depending how details emerge with time, my predictions, my thoughts, my analysis, possibly inside the grain shed, near that hole, possibly the grain truck being parked in or reversed in or then moved out after and then covered back over again if Dylan was somewhere within the area. Just remember, just think back to when I did my analysis, my theories, my concepts, possibilities, all of that back then, extremely documented, still all on my channel, including all the other videos. This is where it could all tie in together. And this is why it's important when it comes to ideas and theories. Not everything has to be a conspiracy. You can have genuine ideas. You can have common sense thoughts, which may only be ideas and thoughts at this moment in time, or at least back then. But then with evidence or with confirmation by the authority, officially confirmed, it's reinforced. That is the order and process of things. But 90% of people out there who said this or said that, did this, did that, was a load of bollocks within the community, and it was never truly reinforced officially. So a load of bollocks and planks out there, humans, okay? This is the last stronghold when it comes to the Dylan Rounds case community, the true crime community. This is the last stronghold. And, you know, not everyone will agree with it, but this is just my thoughts and ideas. When it comes to the true crime community as a whole, as arguably inexperienced as I may be compared to the other YouTubers out there that have done it longer and are older in age as well, etc., I would say I am the last stronghold. This is the only last hope in this world when it comes to balance and understanding it from different perspectives without being manipulated, without being delusional, without being positively delusional, but being realistic and at times straight to the point, okay? This is the last stronghold. So welcome to those that are currently here and people that do come along who are new viewers. You may not understand everything. You may not understand the concepts here, but eventually with time, you will, okay? So this is kind of like an intro as to what's been going on recently, reinforced once again. So Gloria Dellen, who attended the court, what she said, some of the things were reinforced and were consistent with what was said in the Sun article, which was earlier on in the day before the hearing or the preliminary. So whilst Andrew Culver, maybe Christie, are skeptical or don't trust that news article, parts of it was correct, or maybe most of it was correct. And take in mind the language and wording was saying how this could happen, that could happen, right? Not like it's guaranteed, but it could. That's why they used correct language and wording there, which is pretty good. Unlike some other news articles which we've read with time. The only thing that was disappointing though with that Sun news article was the timeline it provided. It was a very poor timeline, inaccuracies as well. That's unfortunate. I don't know if they ever updated the timeline of the Dylan Rounds case. I don't know if it's still up on the Missing in America network page, but who knows. So in terms of today and how we're going to look at things, I don't want any copyright BS, okay? I'm going to keep it careful there just for now. If there needs to be some kind of analysis on Brenner with the court appearance, maybe that could be considered. But we just really need to look at the important information and details as of today, okay? Just to reflect back on, shout out to the people recently for either their super chats or gifted memberships. Good of those people to do so just recently. And, you know, just keep on going. It's just confirmation that one's doing the right thing, in the right path, the right direction. And it does kind of like act as like an energy booster as well, because it's nice to see, of course. So the order of how we'll do things today, I guess we could possibly look at the news articles first and then follow on with what's on Facebook, which is Candice Cooley's own response to what's just happened with Brenner. And then finally look at the official statement. So then you can compare and contrast as to what's consistent with the information and what isn't. And that's if there is anything wrong or incorrect or exaggerated. It should be consistent, but some details may be lacking on some news articles compared to others. But because we're looking at a range of different stuff today, it should all be compiled together. Okay. So without further ado, let's get into the first article. The title of this by Fox 13 now reads, Suspect in Dylan Round's case pleads guilty to murder, cause of death revealed. It'll probably be mentioned later on, but as we originally heard in the past, the suspect, James Brenner, I can't remember what his middle name was, but that doesn't matter, James Brenner, it was aggravated murder, but since, because I believe as part of the plea deal, it was reduced down. And then in the end, with this preliminary or the hearing of Brenner, it was pleaded guilty to second degree. Anyway, let's just read what's mentioned here. Brigham City, Utah, as it was like last time. A suspect arrested more than a year ago in the disappearance of a young Utah man, Dylan Rounds, pleaded guilty Wednesday to murder. James Brenner, age 60, pleaded guilty to second-degree felony murder in the death of 19-year-old Dylan Rounds and 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a restricted person. Just a quick question, it might be mentioned later on. Why is it only 2 counts of possession of a firearm? I thought it was 3 counts. Or am I wrong? Has one been excused, pardoned, not counted? If anyone knows, feel free to explain that. It might mention it later on then. It's interesting how it says Brenner is 60 years old, and whilst that may be true, I'm sure the article that I read yesterday was claiming he was 61 or 62. Maybe it was just a simple mistake back then. Nevertheless, Brenner pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. So all the people in the past that were so obsessed, and those people with the goldfish mentalities, and those people that have changed since and hiding and lurking with their subconscious thoughts of Brenner's innocent, Brenner is not guilty. Well, it's mentioned here that he's pleaded guilty. Now, look at a photo of Brenner. I don't think he had it last time. He's got a ponytail now. I don't know, it kind of looks a bit weird on him, but that's not that important. As I said, you know, you look at his facial expressions, obviously he doesn't look that happy. Does he look sad? I don't know. Is he confused? I don't know. I mean, he was saying yes to a lot of stuff, so he seemed quite conscious at the time. His facial expressions did not change much. He cooperated, but didn't really talk too much, right? He said yes most of the time, and I understand, yes sir, etc. So there's not really much to look at there, personally. In quotes. It doesn't necessarily put it to rest. I believe this is what Candice Cooley is saying. This is part of, I guess, the transcript of the news interview where Candice Cooley was talking, okay? So, despite the outcome with Brenner and pleading guilty, it doesn't quite put it to rest. But this court part of it, and the anxiety of the consistently waiting, what's going to happen, when is it going to happen, what if it doesn't happen, that part we can finally lay to rest, said Rounds' mother, Candice Cooley. So they've already been able to lay Dylan Rounds to rest because they were able to find him because of that plea deal with Brenner. So there was comfort there was closure there, and now there's another chapter closing. But as we saw, Candice Cooley isn't too pleased with the outcome. During Wednesday's preliminary hearing, it was also revealed for the first time that Dylan Rounds died from a gunshot wound to the head. Now, it was mentioned on Gloria and Dylan's channel that it was 2 gunshots to the head, and I believe it was also mentioned in the court appearance as well, because I said Dylan's body, they did an autopsy, they looked at Dylan's actual skull and found gunshots to the head too, okay? So that confirms that. That confirms that Dylan Rounds was shot. So all the people that didn't believe it or were obsessed with other outcomes, those people were wrong. But when it comes to Warlike Wrath, I did my ideas, concepts in the past, and I was more so focused on a gunshot to Dylan. Right? Do you remember? So I predicted it. And on top, I did highlight the possibility that maybe Dylan's gun was used against him, and supposedly that's the case here, so I guess I predicted that as well. Anyway, Dylan Rounds, this just gives a bit of a brief story from the past. Dylan Rounds disappeared in 2022, caught attention nationwide, as he was the last seen over Memorial Day weekend in Montello. Yes, correct. Well, actually, no. Last seen over Memorial Day weekend. I mean, if Friday counts as the beginning of Memorial Day weekend, well, that's true. The 27th, because Dylan was in Montello on the 27th, and then later on in the day, getting towards night time, was back at his farm in Lucin, Utah. That would make sense. Yeah. Nevada, 30 miles west of his home in Lucin, Utah. Family said Dylan Rounds moved to the area to start his own farm. Now, some people are still questioning Dylan Rounds, or at least the choices made, or the lack of action by the parents. I mean, in the US, I believe, and applies in the UK and other places too, at the age of 18, you're classified as an adult. At what age did Dylan Rounds move, though, down to Lucin, Utah? Would it have been 18? Would it have been 17? Round about then? If it's 18 at least and over, adult, making your own choices, decisions, shouldn't be a problem. If it's under that, you could argue. But then at the same time, you could argue and say, even if Dylan Rounds was underage going down to Lucin, Utah, as bad as that may seem, or irresponsible in the eyes of some people, and parenting, whatever you want to call it, if it was under the age of 18, if that was the case, whilst it might not be a good thing that, at that time when Dylan Rounds was more vulnerable than ever and younger, was Dylan Rounds hurt, harmed, attacked, killed? No. Dylan Rounds was attacked, was murdered at the age of an adult. Okay? So that's take in mind, was it 19 years old? So still classified as an adult. Young adult, but an adult. Anyway, never mind about that for now. Nearly a year after his disappearance in 2023, James Brenner, age 60, was charged with murder in connection to the case. Brenner had reportedly been squatting on a remote property near Rounds' farm at the time of his disappearance. Not quite near. Brenner supposedly squatting at the grain shed property, which is 5 miles away from Dylan's farm. That's reality. Brenner was arrested after a pair of boots were found near the property that contained Rounds' blood and Brenner's DNA. As said, a range of people in the past, like Indiana 59 and other plonkers, were obsessed about no blood on Dylan's boots. But this and that doesn't link, and that I don't mean to say it's this, but look how it's mentioned here. There you go. Additionally, during the investigation, officials found a time-lapse video, and that was found successfully around November time of 2022. But the family and everyone else heard about it around March 3rd, 2023, okay, and onwards. The time-lapse footage, which a range of people previously, like Corey and other plonkers, were obsessed and believed that a time-lapse video was not a video and it was only a few photos. Well, once again, wrong. And people can contest it till this day, till the cows come home. But at the end of the day, the parents saw the footage. Justin Rounds, of all people, the people that the general public bow down to and listen to, Justin Rounds said himself, he watched the video, he saw what Brenner was doing and gave a description, which is exactly how it's worded here too. Showing Brenner cleaning a gun with blood stains on his arms and shirt, and with the shirt in the video was later seized and tested positively by the police for Rounds' DNA upon it. And because of the time lapse, because of the timing, 7:03, the last time stamp, the 7:03 being the last phone ping of Dylan Rounds when he was alive, likely, near to the grain shed property. And then the next one being 7:27, Dylan's phone ping, again, but in Brenner's trailer. So Dylan, 7:03, near the grain shed. 7:27, Dylan's phone, in the possession of Brenner in the trailer. And it just so happens with that time-lapse footage, Brenner's cleaning a firearm with blood on him and DNA of Dylan. As I said in the past, when you use common sense, it's quite self-explanatory, right? 1 minute, Dylan's alive, and then about 30 minutes later, he's supposedly not. Oh, but where's the proof? How do we know? Well, you look at the time-lapse footage. You look at the descriptions and details given. Yeah, but we've not actually seen the footage ourselves. Maybe it's too sensitive to view. Maybe legally not allowed to see it. So you just got to put trust in the people describing it to you, whether it be the news articles, whether it be court documents, whether it be Candice Cooley or Justin Rounds. And I think at some point there was some court documents possibly that did talk about the time-lapse footage and a range of other bits and bobs. So there was a high level of consistency there. There was never changes or dips. Whilst people are still stuck in the past with the contradictions made from the family, ever since there have been less contradictions. So some people might have an agenda within the Dylan Rounds case by being stuck in the past and not actively focusing on what's currently going on. Because as you know, I was one of the catalysts in picking up on contradictions and hypocrisy with humans. And I would argue and say more now than back then. There's more contradictions, hypocrisy, goldfish mentality, short-term, long-term memory loss when it comes to dysfunctional misfits within the Dylan Rounds community and not those assigned within the case. Because when it comes to the time-lapse footage, that's remained very consistent all the way through. It never switched or changed like with the Gunn and Keith Hobbs story in the past from the family, okay? That's what people need to understand and look into, okay? The consistency part. Whilst we may have not seen the footage ourselves, there are many other cases out there over time which haven't revealed the true material or the footage, but people were happily okay in believing in it because they had a form of trust and faith within whoever was describing it. It just so happens with the Dylan Rounds case, some people have an agenda against the family. Some people have trust issues within the case because of how it's gone. But ever since, it has become more stable, okay? I've seen it myself. I've seen the transformation. Maybe other people have failed to do that, but I've seen a form of stability coming along and things being cemented in place, which is a positive sign, okay? So you look at the Dylan Rounds situation, and we can also do like a video looking back at it, a reflection as for a map analysis, right? But, 7:03, Dylan Rounds phone ping in his possession lightly, then 7:27, Dylan's phone now in Brenner's possession, and in between, Dylan shot. We know that now, but supposedly we didn't have that proof back then. But that's what I was basically thinking back then. Right, in that period of time, Dylan was shot. Right? I was even looking for bullet holes in the Grangeshed property. Whether that was a success or not, I was probably the only one doing a bloody ballistic report on YouTube. I didn't see anyone else really do it. Says a lot, doesn't it? Interesting. When you use common sense, it can work. When you use common sense, it can be reinforced in the future. So it's all under control here. Despite the wailing banshees and wretched humans with time, I did not give in. I remained stable. Other humans, we saw the change in behaviour by them. Okay, very unfortunate. We have lost people along the way, not literally, just distanced. It is what it is. Nevertheless, you see the descriptions there. In April of 2024, family reported that Brenner led authorities to where Rounds was buried as part of a plea agreement. I believe that was April 9th. Brenner, yes, did lead authorities, that's correct. And then family were told later by authorities in the day as to what happened. Dozens of volunteers spent hours in the West Desert of Utah with high-tech equipment to uncover Rounds' remains. The Rounds family expressed at the time that their ultimate goal was to get Dylan back and move forwards, and that's basically what they've done. Now, in terms of locating Dylan originally, we will do a video on that. I just wanted to highlight, I wasn't able to do it today because of this breaking news. This comes first and then the map analysis comes second. I can't be making multiple videos in one day because YouTube punishes me. And if my videos are all about spreading awareness and YouTube stops me from doing that, then it's pointless, isn't it? So we've got to spread things out because of patience and because of practicality. Okay? If YouTube... if YouTube didn't punish me, then I would make a few more videos in a day, of course, right? But I'm not going to risk it because it doesn't work out 100% of the time, as I've seen myself. Anyway, the family has relied heavily on community support and help from Missing in America Network, and as well, some YouTubers online, let's be real, in quotes, "It gets to us personally in a sense that we just want to help and fix the problem," said advocate Danny Gutierrez. It's important we have this strength together to help everyone. Officials said, as part of the agreement, Brenner received a reduction from first-degree felony aggravated murder to second-degree felony murder. Additionally, the second charge, desecration of human remains, was dismissed. An unrelated case of aggravated assault that had no relation to the Rounds case was also dismissed. Right. So, yes, we originally heard aggravated murder as said in the past, but I believe, yes, as part of the agreement, so that'll be the plea deal agreement and process there. Some people were wondering, what's second-degree murder? I believe second-degree murder is when it's done with intent but not premeditated. So it's kind of like on the spot. You decide to kill someone, you want to kill someone, you need to kill someone, you do it by choice, but you didn't plan it out, and it wasn't planned out a day or two before that, okay? But I still feel that in terms of Brenner's mindset, it was ticking away like a time bomb in terms of his hatred towards Dylan Rounds, and then came the day where there was a factor which triggered him, and that's why he decided to kill Dylan on that day. Because as I said, if it didn't happen on the 28th of May 2022, it would have happened in the future, likely, for as long as Dylan Rounds remained in that area around Brenner. Okay? There we go. It says, additionally, the second charge, desecration of human remains, was dismissed. Right. An unrelated case of aggravated assault that had no relation to Rounds' case was also dismissed. Ooh. Right, so I'm aware of that aggravated assault. The aggravated assault isn't to do with Dylan Rounds, but it did stem back from 2021, in which Brenner attacked, a 69-year-old, and attacked him with a chair or a lawn chair. And from 2021 onwards, it was a pending arrest warrant in which the police did nothing because their excuse at the time was because of the virus and the outbreak and lockdown, whatever. Then came the Dylan Rounds case in 2022 when then police finally decided to take up on that arrest warrant alongside the other separate charges. Okay? So that 2021 aggravated assault, not linked to Dylan Rounds, was dismissed. Interesting. But what stands out to me here, because I am reading it for the first time, so understand my raw reaction, the charge of desecration of human remains was dismissed. I assume that's part of the plea deal. That Brenner responsible and also leading authorities to the spot where he buried Dylan, where he knows Dylan is buried, but as a part of the deal, that charge has been dismissed. Which, I understand it's a part of the plea deal, you give and take, you give something, you get something back, but at the same time, it just seems bad, it's not good. Whilst, okay, responsible for the death of Dylan, well, it's clearly responsible that Brenner's responsible for the desecration as well, yet that's been taken away now. That's not good. If people look at it in the future, someone who's not aware of the case and they see that, the desecration of human remains, Dylan, has been dismissed, the charge on Brenner, it's not applicable to Brenner anymore. If people didn't know the full story or context, they would just assume and think, oh, so Brenner killed Dylan, but Brenner didn't dispose of Dylan. So then that must mean there is another suspect out there. Could it be Kurt Wadsworth? Could it be John Hatley? Could it be Chase Venstra? Do you see what I'm saying? Whilst I get these bargains, these deals, these negotiations that go on, right, give and take, to an outsider who sees this, they could be confused and then think there are other people out there responsible. I mean, if you know the full story or you followed it for quite some time, you'd understand this more so than an outsider, but still, it just feels like things are being diminished, reduced, minimalised. And whilst it's a part of a plea deal and legally speaking, it just feels like it's taking it away from the true impact of what Brenner did and was responsible for in the name of Dylan Rounds' case. So, I don't know, it just doesn't look good, does it? So, aggravated murder downgraded to second degree murder. And then the situation with the desecration, concealing Dylan Round's body, has been taken away from Brenner. It's annoying that. It's not good. Anyway, as part of the plea agreement, sentences for each of the 3 charges will run consecutively and prison time for Brenner is mandatory. Only 1 to 15 is for murdering Dylan. So I'm assuming that's in years, 1 to 15 years served in prison for murdering Dylan Rounds, which does seem quite low. And we saw the other charge, which was 25 years or to a lifetime. 1 to 15 years. That, you know, I believe Candice Cooley said that Brenner likely dies in jail, and some other people think so too. Brenner is what, 60 or so? 75, around 75 the age of Brenner would be, I guess, if it's 1 to 15, if it's 15 years, if Brenner got out in 15 years' time, about 75 years of age or so, likely still alive. You got to understand that with Brenner, whilst he might be an alcoholic in the past or a heavy drinker and eaten unhealthy food and been overweight, ever since, some of that stuff's been taken away from Brenner. So Brenner is living a healthier life now. As bad and as weird as that may seem, he is living a healthier life now than he was when he was a walking free man. So that means his health should slightly benefit from that and that lifestyle change. So at the age of 75, Brenner could well be released and somewhat healthy. Unless we see the other charges later on in this article, then if that adds on top of the 1 to 15 years, well, then likely things could be compromised there. But let's just keep on reading. I'm doing this raw. It does say the rest is gun charges, said Cooley. So constituents of Utah, think about it and who you vote for. These laws are made by our legislation, and if you want them changed, this could be your kid, and it could be a man serving more time for having gun charges than murdering your child with them. Yeah, that's weird to think, on top of the fact that Brenner, responsible for killing Dylan with a gun, yet that charge is lesser, possibly, than unrelated gun charges, just being in possession of them as being a felon. That is pretty messed up. That is a bit dodgy, or quite dodgy, I would say. So it's not revealing the gun charges as for the length of sentencing, only the murder situation. That's something the Rounds Cooley family hopes to change through their new non-profit, Dylan's Legacy. The organisation launched a few weeks ago. It's meant to provide resources and support for families. Brenner's sentencing was scheduled for July 1st at 1:30 p.m. July 2nd, the day after, is Crime Con. Interesting. So we'll be on the lookout for Brenner's sentencing. I'm sure more details will be revealed then. But so far, this is reasonable, what we've looked at. There are details here which link back to what was covered yesterday, so that's good. And it has been elaborated since. So the cause of death, autopsy report. They never worded it as an autopsy report, though. That's what's quite interesting. They didn't say, when doing an autopsy report, we reported and found that this and that happened. It's not worded like that here. It's just simply saying that it's been confirmed by authorities that Dylan was shot. Though, you know, in the court appearance, the actual court appearance, it did mention about checking Dylan's skull, okay, and then finding shots to the head. So there is that. As I said, not all articles will do it word for word as for the transcript of what went on in the court, okay? Just understand that. Now, I guess we should move on to the next article just to check for consistency. This second article is by people.com. We've seen it before. What I'm going to do, I'll read through it if there's anything new. The stuff that isn't new and what we've heard from the previous article, I'll just skip through, okay? So this title reads, Man pleads guilty to murdering Dylan Rounds 1 month after his skeletal remains were found. Slightly different title. Rounds went missing May 28th. Last speaking with the grandmother. Yeah, fair enough. There's Dylan. James Brenner pled guilty to murdering, at the time, 19-year-old Dylan Rounds, 2 years after going missing. According to press release from Box Elder County Attorney's Office, which I believe we'll be looking at from the Facebook page shortly, officially, May 15th, Brenner entered his plea in the 1st District Court in Brigham City, resolving 3 court cases. 2 were related to Rounds' death. So I'm assuming the 2 related to Rounds' death is 1 to do with the murder situation, how that was reduced down from aggravated to second-degree murder, and the situation with the desecration being, scrapped, taken off him. We'll just double check, okay, just to check. The County Attorney's Office stated that the plea deal required Brenner to disclose the location of young farmer's remains before his court appearance on Wednesday. Round skeletal remains were found in April 9th. In exchange, Brenner received a reduction from first-degree felony aggravated murder to second-degree felony murder. The second charge, desecration of human remains, was dismissed. The press release added, noting that Brenner also pleaded guilty to 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a restricted person. What about the third count? Does that exist? I just remember it being 3 different gun charges, but there's only 2 here. A third case for aggravated assault predating and not relating to Dylan's death was dismissed, the 2021 one, under the plea deal. This is all a part of the plea deal. Brenner will serve the sentences for each charge consecutively, and prison is mandatory. His sentencing is scheduled for July 1st. Let me just say something here. Right, full stop. Under the plea deal, Brenner will serve sentences for each charge. Are they saying for each charge, which includes the gun charges, I don't know, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, because the possessions of firearms were unrelated to Dylan Rounds, I'm assuming. And, the aggravated assault has nothing to do with Dylan Rounds, so that's separate. Maybe the aggravated assault would have been dismissed regardless. Would it have been dismissed? Let me just say something quickly. Quick question. If Brenner never killed Dylan and there was no charges with that, and it was just the gun charges and it was just the aggravated assault, 2 separate charges, would any of them have been dismissed, like how it's worded here, or would there have been more action? Quick question. If you can answer it, feel free. A third case, yeah, we've seen that. Box Elder County Attorney Stephen Hadfield said in a statement, being able to bring Dylan home, prosecution to a successful conclusion, great relief. Been amazing to see what the Tylers and unrelenting efforts of so many different people. We wouldn't be here without each of their individual contributions. Rounds went missing at the time. Brenner, 58 at the time, squatting at a trailer property where Rounds kept his grain shed property. Yeah, it was worded a bit better there, I'll admit. Named suspect in July 2022. The current totality of information gathered from the many interviews and searches, along with the analysis of both physical evidence, forensic data, has identified James Brenner as a suspect, Chief Deputy Kay Palmer at the Box Elder Sheriff's Office previously said. There we go. Previous conversations with people, Round's mother Candice Cooley shared how he made his dreams of owning his farm, Dylan, come to life by purchasing hundreds of acres of land in the remote Utah desert. Dylan was out building his life, Cooley said in June 2022. His lifelong dream was to have his own farm. He had spent the last 2 summers ripping out and redeveloping that ground on his own. He got his water rights, he did everything, and this year his grain was finally coming up. He finally got a crop, he got his pivot up. It was fully functional farm. Earlier this month, Round's family created Dylan's Legacy, non-profit organisation. Okay, short but sweet, worded slightly differently, but still consistent with, the charges and what's been dismissed. That's good to see. Let's now move on to the final article, East Idaho News, because that's the main one. The East Idaho News article does actually have a video down below, as you may see. Now, I didn't want to include it in this video because I think it could be a standalone one. I've got an idea which I'll probably present at some point, preferably sooner than later. To avoid being punished by YouTube, maybe if I upload it as a short video in the meantime, that will help. Do you know, like how people said they wanted to hear the pure facts, the confirmed evidence, all in one place summarised? Well, this video down below perfectly demonstrates it. Although it's 13 minutes long, there is an extract where they mention all the key evidence in a few lines, and then Brenner agrees with it as well. So I think I'll do a standalone video to that, because it just goes against all of the rubbish which, the other humans have come out with within the community along the way. So it cleanses, the dirtiness. So be on the lookout for that video. It was just an idea I had on the spot. So let me know if you'd want to see it. Now, this titled the article, Watch, Man Pleads Guilty to Murder of Dylan Rounds After Leading Law Enforcement to Bail Site. Yeah. Published 7:46 p.m, May 15th on the day. Okay. Yeah. Let's see what it reads. So I don't know why there's a blank spot there. Maybe there was a few photos. I just want to add a correction in. Apologies. The correction is Brenner did limp into the court, but that's because he was still chained up, okay? Earlier on in the video I said he wasn't limping or he didn't look like it. He was. Restricted movement lightly. Now, James Brenner pleaded guilty, yep. Brigham City admitted to the murder of Dylan Rounds. It's part of the plea agreement Wednesday, leading law enforcement officers to the burial site, yes. Brenner walked into the courtroom limping and weak, but Rounds' mom, Candice Cooley, says it's all an act. Is that what she said? Maybe. Puts on this appearance that he's weak and feeble. Candice Cooley, Rounds' mother, tells East Idaho News, people have to realise he's been in jail for almost 2 years now. That was not the man he was when he did what he did to Dylan. Right, so I understand that. It's like the same observations by Candice Cooley and Justin Rounds in the past when they said the same thing of him limping about. I think maybe he might be limping partially because of his leg injury from the past, long lasting, and may also be because of him being chained up, so it restricts his movement. Add one and one together, that's what you get. But I can't blame people for being cautious or skeptical, thinking, look at how vulnerable he looks now, or his facial expressions. He looks like really sad, and oh, what a shame. Is that for sympathy, support, leniency? Who knows? You know, if Brenner was capable enough to shoot someone in the Maryland shooting way back in the past, and Brenner was aggressive enough to have fights with people like the original 2021 incident, and Brenner was quite capable of shooting Dylan Rounds in the head twice, yeah, quite an aggressive person, unstable. And whilst he might seem all nice and innocent or subdued in court, you let him out in the open, walking free, you trigger him, he'll show a different side, very likely. So I do get that. Now, yeah, it just gives the original story what we heard before. Near farm, not quite, 5 miles away. During court, Brandon Maynard read the allegations to Brenner, including new details that Dylan had been shot in the head multiple times. When asked if the allegations were true, Brenner simply stated, yes, sir. And that's what he did. So Brenner is agreeing to shooting Dylan in the head. As part of the agreement, Brenner pleaded guilty to the second-degree murder of Rounds and 2 counts of possession of a firearm. Yeah, seen that. All other charges were dropped. So that would be the desecration of Dylan Rounds and the 2021 aggravated assault on that older individual, I believe from Montello. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. Do you think that's quite shocking how the second charge in the name of the Dylan Rounds case was dropped, the desecration? Does that create a bad image? Does it make Brenner look more innocent now than before? I want to know your thoughts on the matter, okay? You know what noise? I'm just holding the tripod because I'm not sure if it's raining outside, so I'll have to look out for that. Brenner agreed to show law enforcement the location of Rounds' remains, which occurred on April 9th. The body was found in Lucin, but the exact area is unknown. But obviously recently, the likes of Weezer has given a rough description. And as I said, I can do a map analysis at some point, but just be patient, okay? It will come. Here's Dylan Rounds. Brenner also received a reduction from first-degree felony aggravated murder of Rounds to second-degree felony murder. The agreement stated that the sentences for each of the charges will run consecutively in prison time mandatory. We've seen that before. He will receive little credit. Little credit for the time served, 17 days, whilst he was in the local jail. Right. Both the defence and prosecution agreed to recommend a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 30 years in prison at sentencing. Right, so that gives a wider perspective now compared to what we saw before, because the previous article only mentioned 1 to 15 years for murder, and it didn't mention anything about the gun charges. So if it's a maximum of 30 years, there's a small chance that it could be 15 years maximum for the murder of Dylan, and then maybe 15 years for the gun charges. I don't know if that sounds too excessive, but 15 and 15 is 30 maximum years in prison. Not that that's guaranteed, but if you used to work it out that way mathematically. I mean, there's other ways about it. It could be 1 to 15, 7, 8 or 10 years for murder, and then the remainder could be for gun charges. As I said, Candice Cooley was slightly worried and concerned that gun charges unrelated to the Dylan Rounds case could yield a greater punishment and longer sentencing than the actual murder of their son Dylan Rounds, which is quite shocking in a way. There's a video of Candice Cooley speaking out afterwards. Saw that. I don't know who that person is on the right though, but you got that video there. If we need body language or we need to pick up on details there for any contradictions or interesting information, let me know and I could take a look at it. According to Candice Cooley, this is not nearly enough prison time for what Brenner admitting to doing to her son. In quotes, more than likely Brenner will die in prison, but it shouldn't even be an option. He should be 25 to life years spent, says Cooley. But the justice system forced us into this type of plea deal. That's a shame, isn't it? Not good. Round's parents worked closely with prosecutors to secure a plea deal to find the remains of their son, according to a news release from Box Elder County Attorney's Office. Right, so the parents worked closely with prosecutors to agree on a plea deal. So the family did play a role in some way or another, and the family were partially responsible for this plea deal, along with the others involved, despite the family not wanting it in the past. And it's interesting because the family didn't want a plea deal in the past because of the outcome, the sentencing and the length of time it could be. They wouldn't be too satisfied with it. And yet fast forward to now, when they did agree with it, they say that they've been forced into that plea deal, that they supposedly had no other choice. Maybe because in the background they just wanted to find their son and that breaking point came about. But still, they weren't satisfied back then. That's why they didn't accept a plea deal and they didn't want one. And now, because they have, they're still not quite satisfied. Because whereas Brenner could spend most of his life, if not all his life, remainder in jail or prison, it's not for quite the right reasons, with certain charges being dropped, the desecration and murder being reduced down, minimalised. So it diminishes the actual impact Brenner had on the case and Dylan Rounds. So that is kind of disappointing, but maybe it puts into perspective why Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds were reluctant to do that plea deal in the past, when we know now the situation it's followed. Not great, is it? Anything else here? Being, in quotes, being able to bring Dylan home and bring this prosecution to a successful conclusion is a great relief, says Box Elder County Attorney Hadfield. Been amazing to see what the Tylers, we've seen that, haven't we? Brenner's sentencing, July 1st, Is that, that appears to be it there from East Idaho News. That's pretty interesting, that. Some extra details mentioned, along with the maximum of 30 years spent. If it was 30 years, though, and Brenner is 60 years old now, 30, 70, 80, 90, Brenner would be around 90 years old. And there's still a chance you could be alive. Maybe there's more chance of dying by then, but still, many stories of people out there who live a long life for the right or wrong reasons, good or bad, healthy or not. Things can vary. So maybe the exception is if Brenner was somehow released at the age of 90 or 91, he probably wouldn't be that much of a threat. But nevertheless, he would be a walking free man, which could be questionable. Now, would there be any chance that Brenner could be released early if he was on good behaviour in prison or not? Once again, just let me know your thoughts about the articles, what we've read out, the situation with Brenner pleading guilty, but some of the charges being dropped and some being reduced in severity. Do you agree with it? Is it a good idea? What do you think of the plea deal, the outcome of it? I'd say the plea deal, has led to Dylan being found, but at what cost? I think things are a little bit worse off now. Whilst you can say it's kind of out the way and Brenner's pled guilty, etc., etc., the severity of it overall has kind of been minimalised, and that's kind of a kick in the face in the Dylan Rounds situation. Whilst Brenner will still get punished and serve quite a bit of time in prison, if that's what you call it in the US, the original charges, when you compare them to originally to now, it's just not as good, not as it should be. And I can understand the plea deal, the reluctancy of it back then. But to be honest, more so with the family back then, it was because they didn't want to see Brenner walking as a free man because he could harm other families out there. That was the main concern by Candice Cooley and Justin Rounds. Yet now, They may not have to worry about that part about Brenner walking as a free man, but what they will always know is that Brenner wasn't officially charged with the desecration and concealing of Dylan rounds, even though that they know he was responsible, but officially or legally, it's not the case because it's been taken away. So it's like, besides Dylan being taken away from you and creating a void, the charges as well being taken away and some being minimalised, pretty messed up. And people can say, well, it is what it is, or it's just part of the plea deal. But still, surely people can see that the reluctancy of the plea deal was somewhat understandable as to the situation it is now. So for people that may complain now about it being unfair, but were very insistent back then about it happening, little contradictions there. What's your thoughts like now? I want to know people's ideas there. So what we can do now, I just want to highlight one more thing. When we look at these articles, I do prefer it because it's word for word, and at times they do actually use quotes and transcripts from a video interview or parts of the court hearing, court procedures, preliminary, whatever you want to call it, trial. That's why I do like that word for word, so you can actually see it yourself, visualize it instead of just hearing it. And as well, when it comes to listening into the footage, you've got to play it, stop it, avoid copyright, and on top of all that, just very messy. Unless you're doing like a full-on analysis with the footage, then yeah. But with any transcripts and the word for word stuff, I do prefer that better. It's easier to look at. You can slow down, take it at your own pace, and everyone can watch along or listen in if they want to. They want to read or they just want to listen. And I can analyse on the spot. It works perfectly this way. But I said I can do a standalone video regarding certain evidence as like a summary, right? I'll try and transform it in a way just so it's kind of unique, because as you know, if you leave it in its original format, kind of questionable. But East Idaho News was okay with me in the past when I used about 30 seconds of their footage or so. So if I try and do that again, it should be okay. Now, what I want to transition on to now is some of the more official stuff, kind of straight from the horse's mouth. So official statement by Box Elder, we'll read that, and the response by Candice Cooley in her post on Facebook. Now, although we didn't see it in this video, as for the court appearance by Brenner and what was being talked about and summarised as for the evidence and the situation with Brenner, the incriminating evidence, etc., all the stuff what we've heard with time, all clustered together, and on top the report about Dylan shot in the skull multiple times, shots meaning more than one, so like 2 for example, in the head. Those last few details highlighted by a person within the courtroom was highlighting how in the official report some of it has not been added on just yet, but there'll be action to add it on later. So I don't know if that's what will be lacking in the official statement by Box Elder in relation to this, right? If it's missing, then it makes sense as to why it was brought up in that court appearance with Brenner about it not being included, but it will be later. I thought I'd mention that now in case people want to twist and turn it and say, well, that's not mentioned, so I don't mean to say it's true. I guess it's just because it's recent and it hasn't been added yet, but it will be. Just wanted that confirmation. So, without further ado, let's look at the official statement by Box Elder and see what they had to say. Here we are, managed to find it. Thankfully, it was accessible. I will zoom in a second just so you get a better look at it. As for the comments, we don't really need to look at that. I mean, we can have a brief look there. You want to pause it, feel free to do so. People saying about how, good things and bad things, it's the best that could come out of it, could be worse, etc., you get the idea. Box Elder County press release following court proceedings today. It was posted 13 hours ago by Jasmine. Try and zoom in if possible. Hopefully that's clear enough. There we go. Box Elder County Attorney's Office. Blair T. Wardle, Chief Deputy Attorney, District Court Prosecutor. Brian P. Duncan, Criminal Deputy Attorney, District Court Prosecutor. R. Renee Glosson, Criminal Deputy Attorney, District Court Prosecutor. Tyler W. Holmes, Tyler, Criminal Deputy Attorney, Juvenile and Justice Court Prosecutor. Anne K. Hansen, Chief Civil Deputy Attorney. So there's the names. Now let's begin reading. For immediate release, May 15th, 2024, James Brenner pleads guilty to murder in the death of Dylan Rounds. Brigham City, May 15th, 2024. James Brenner appeared in the First District Court in Brigham City this afternoon on 3 pending court cases, including an aggravated murder charge for the death of Dylan Rounds. Brenner entered guilty pleas to resolve the 3 cases. The prosecutor, Blair Wardle, worked closely with Dylan's parents to review the different options and sentencing outcomes to structure and finalise the plea deal signed by Brenner and the state in court today. So as we see, with working closely with the parents do have a say within the plea deal, right? So when people in the background were saying no, the parents have no control at all, they do have to an extent. So people got that wrong within the community. Just wanted to highlight that. Anyway. The plea deal required Brenner to disclose the location of Dylan's remains prior to today's court date. In exchange, Brenner received a reduction from first-degree felony aggravated murder to second-degree felony murder. The second charge, desecration of human remains, was dismissed. Shocking. Brenner also pleaded guilty to 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a restricted person. A third case for aggravated assault, 2021, which predates and is not related to the incident with Dylan, was dismissed. The plea deal also includes an agreement that the sentences for each of the individual charges run consecutively and that prison is mandatory. So are they implying here that the incident, which isn't related to Dylan Rounds but relates to 2021 with an older individual from Montello, an attack on an older person with a lawn chair, that was dismissed because of this plea deal within the Dylan Rounds case? Is that why it's implying? Because if so, that seems a bit silly because it's a separate charge. It's unrelated. It should be dealt with without it being treated with leniency because of Brenner doing a plea deal. It's silly that, nevertheless. Brenner provided information that led law enforcement to the location of Dylan's remains in western Box Elder County near Lucin, within Lucin basically. With the help of the FBI, Sheriff's Office recovered Dylan remains on April 9, 2024, with today's change of plea. Brenner is scheduled to be sentenced in the First District Court on July 1, 2024. Box Elder County Attorney Stephen Hadfield had this to say about the outcome of the case. Being able to bring Dylan home and bring prosecution to a successful conclusion is a great relief. It's been amazing to see what the tireless and unrelenting efforts of so many different people can accomplish. We wouldn't be here today without each of their individual contributions. As you can see, that extract there was re-quoted by the news articles which we read out earlier today, so that's consistent there. Good to see. Rounds went missing originally after speaking to his grandmother on May 20, 2022, shortly after Box Elder County Sheriff's Office reported a missing person. From the time Dylan remains were recovered April 9, 2024, Box Elder County Sheriff's Office dedicated thousands of hours to the investigation and search, engaged an assistant over 30 agencies in Utah. The Box Elder Attorney's Office wishes to share the deepest condolences to the families of Dylan Rounds and expresses immense gratitude to friends, volunteers, and to the law enforcement agencies and all the ones that assisted bringing the resolution to a difficult and heartbreaking case. So, as you know, I am able to speak very quick, just in case people forgot. But basically, what's worded here is what we saw earlier on in the news article, hence why we didn't need to look at it too long. So yes, this official statement is lacking in key detail, like how Dylan was shot and stuff like that. Very disappointing, but at the same time, we saw it officially mentioned in the news articles, and if people are still awkward and don't believe in it, well, people nod their heads to Gloria Dellen, who actually went there herself firsthand and heard it herself. So what Gloria Dellen says is kind of consistent with what the news articles say, and vice versa, and some of which was actually talked about before the preliminary hearing, which I covered first. So all under control. Not the best outcome, but, you know, you see it, how it's going. Now, returning back to the main page, Candice Cooley did repost 13 hours ago by Nate Eaton, reporter from East Idaho News. 15 hours ago, as part of a plea agreement, James Brenner pleaded guilty this afternoon to the murder of Dylan Rounds. My colleague, Caitlin Hart, was in the Utah courtroom for the plea, and we'll have a full story later. Brenner will be sentenced July 1st. There we go. That photo, again, what we saw, the official statement by Box Elder. Let's go down to Candice Cooley here. Well, it appeared, getting onto this one by Candice Cooley, the post was a bit more awkward to access, but nevertheless, here we are. I should be able to get rid of this so it creates more space. Quite a big paragraph by Candice Cooley, her thoughts and responses. Let's see what she had to say 13 hours ago. Candice Cooley said, "Now that all the particulars of the plea bargain are public, there are several key points we want to emphasise. Firstly, it's imperative to acknowledge the extensive collaboration we engaged in with the prosecuting attorney. So they did play quite a role within it. Okay. Together, we diligently worked towards reaching an agreement aimed at bringing Dylan home. Blair's support and dedication throughout this process was invaluable, and we're deeply grateful for his assistance. However, despite our efforts, I must express my unequivocal belief that justice has not been served. It's profoundly unjust that James Brenner will serve a longer sentence for gun-related charges than the cold-blooded murder of Dylan. This man callously shot our son twice in the head, yet a 1 to 15 year sentence hardly reflects the severity of his crime. Unfortunately, the inflexibility of existing laws mean that this sentence cannot be altered with. However, what we can do is advocate for legislative reform. It's crucial for us as a society to recognise that relying solely on government officials to rectify unjust laws is unrealistic. Instead, it's incumbent upon us as constituents to actively engage in the legislative process, particularly concerning violent criminal laws. Right. So if it means there's that lack of flexibility and it cannot be altered with, then that'll just go down with Brenner and the Dylan Rounds case. Not full justice. That's unfortunate. Interestingly, though, Candice Cooley does say, I, Candice Cooley too, am guilty of compliancy in this regard until the issue directly impacted my family. As we approach the upcoming election season, I urge everyone to pay close attention to candidates' stances on public safety. Take the initiative to reach out to them, inquire about their positions on pertinent laws, and demand reform where necessary. Meaningful change requires our collective action. Our voices and votes matter. Failure to act may result in others finding themselves in our unfortunate situation with their loved ones unjustly affected by flawed laws. If you find particular unjust laws in your state and need help lobbying for a change, please reach out to us at dylanroundslegacy.org or help@dylanroundslegacy.org. Together we can make a difference. So it doesn't sound too good in a way. Comments, what's this? It's apparent that Box Elder County fumbled every step of this case from day one. This young man just wanted to farm, but it's all but a waste of a man ended those dreams due to jealousy. That's one of the reasons from the looks of it. It feels like a slap on the wrist. True. Yeah, that's the best way of probably wording it. Another example of someone who should never be released back into society again. Dangerous, unpredictable, and constantly reoffending, history repeating itself, as we saw. Yes, will reoffend. Lawmakers need to realise that the ruthless killing should never be offered plea details and slap on the wrist sentences. But to be honest, the plea deal is the main reason as to why Brenner was willing to open up, because Brenner got something in return. If you're not going to give someone anything in return, they're probably less likely to open up. So there has to be a bit of give and take there, even if it does sound bad. When I heard news that his gun charges were more than his murder, it stopped me in my tracks. Yeah. Finding a way. Okay, so you get the idea of things. There's comments there. We don't need to look through all of them. All in all, hopefully you found this video interesting. Feel free to like and share it so more people hear about it. I wanted to present to you this official information and confirmation regarding what's happened to Brenner, the charges, the shocking twist as well, the slap on the wrist almost, as it feels like, or a kick in the face to the Dylan Rounds case or the family. The fact that Dylan Rounds was shot twice in the head is somewhat consistent with what I was thinking of in the past. So in terms of my analysis on the case, the story, how it unfolded and the likely outcome, it kind of runs consistent to what I was thinking within here and what I expressed in my videos, all documented from the past. So in a way, Warlight Raf got it right. Okay, whilst many other people were delusional and convinced of other weird outcomes. So all under control here. Well done, Warlight Raf. Okay, but we can always reflect back on the shooting event with Dylan, okay? Just to further reflect back on my original points and what I was thinking at the time, to reflect back on that can come, but I think a map analysis is needed first before anything else happens, just to tick all this stuff off the list. And just to highlight one more point, the reality that Brenner shot Dylan with a firearm, and as it's been worded by people who listened in to Glorindellen, because this detail wasn't mentioned in any of the official stuff, but it could have been mentioned in the court, the actual court itself. Those people that were watching Badger Life and a few others from last night who confirmed that Dylan Round's firearm, Brenner used that on Dylan. I guess it would reinforce with Candice Cooley what she was saying in the past, how Dylan would normally have his firearm in his truck. So what, Dylan had his firearm in the grain truck when going down to the grain shed, and somehow Brenner got hold of it? If so, it would make sense, and it would also make sense and reinforce as to why the gun and key fob, or at least the gun itself, was missing originally and why it was returned back later. Will we get any further confirmation on that, or any additional details? Probably, maybe, when the sentencing. I'm sure more details will follow, but you know, it's ticking the boxes and filling in the blanks as we do go along. And to be honest, you can say the blanks, they just weren't reinforced. You know, what you'll see is when information comes out now, some of it, or a fair portion of it, could be consistent with what I said early on as an idea. That is the natural progression and evolution of how an idea can turn into a fact. It's a complete contrast to what other humans did in the community who shaped an idea as a fact and tried convincing everyone, in which many people did fall for it and it fell flat on their face. And I'll always highlight it because people need to know their place and know their role and where they came from, okay? No wiping the slate clean or forgetting everything from the past, because if you do, you'll end up like Brenner, probably reoffending again in different ways. Adapt. Shut up. That's a bit too far, that anyway. But you get the idea, right? We see the history repeating itself. We see the people latching onto the case, unfortunately. But, you know, there's a range of people out there obsessed with the Dylan Rounds case. I'm just consistently covering it. I might as well finish what I started. And it's exactly what I've done with other cases. So it's no different here. Simple as, it's a case I've been interested in, covered it for some time. I've got a better understanding of this case compared to others out there, as you all know. When I do cover other cases here and there, fresh, brand new, I might stick with the original story or just the news articles with what is present, but I don't feel as locked in because I'm new to it, or mainly temporarily covering it. When you are covering a case or looking into one which you know quite a bit about, it's a lot more comfortable, but it also means you can do a better job in reporting on it or analysing it. And that's the best position to be in. And that's like how it feels with the Dylan Rounds case. So the breaking news coming out recently has been very good to see and refreshing, considering a long, dry spell of silence, but for obvious reasons. Granted, the only thing that wasn't mentioned at all was the new DNA evidence that was found towards the end of 2023, or at least that's how it was brought up by Candice Cooley, by those cadaver dogs. Do people remember that? New DNA evidence found, but we never heard about it, and it wasn't mentioned in this court situation. But maybe because it's more newer and being processed, it's not been included just yet, but it could be revealed later. That'll be interesting. See, this is the thing, you know, like with the firearm being taken away, going missing, and then returned later and clean off all prints and evidence. Wasn't it a coincidence that in that time-lapse footage it showed Brenner cleaning a firearm, that before that Brenner used a firearm to shoot Dylan twice in the head, as it was confirmed and proved officially 100%. And in that time-lapse footage, Brenner's got a firearm, he's cleaning a firearm. It just so happens that Dylan Round's firearm was missing, then later returned back, and also missing of evidence or DNA upon it. Common sense, common sense, common sense, and the majority lack it. I maintained it though, and I was able to stitch one thing with another and create an idea. and for most part of it, it's been reinforced. Just want to say once again, if people can truly reinforce it and just give a brief context, Providence, the source, the people that heard about Dylan's firearm being used against him, you can prove that, or at least just give the source where it came from, just so other people can look at it and research into it, because it is a critical part which would counter all of the bullshit from the likes of Bob Farrell, Corey, the audience members, and those disease-ridden humans that have done nothing but harm this case. Okay? And I'm being very serious about that. So that part can be backed up. It'll be very helpful, because there might be some things that were talked about in court which did not appear in the video or article, but it just needs to be backed up and mentioned once again. So if anyone can answer my questions just there and earlier on in this video, leave comments down below under this video, so then everyone else that does come along can research into it as a form of proof. Okay? Thanks for watching. We'll leave it there for now. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Good night.